The shocking truth: Billionaire's Paralyzed daughter's party crashed by a poor woman at midnight. In the opulent heart of Manhattan, where golden chandeliers dripped crystal light onto marble floors, a party was held that would be etched in the city's memory forever. Silver gowns swirled like clouds, laughter danced through the air, and the sweet scent of riches mingled with savory hors d'oeuvres. But lurking in the shadows, an air of mystery twisted around those lively conversations. Everyone whispering about the billionaire's daughter, Sophie, a girl whose radiance was dimmed by paralysis. Tonight, she was to have a night of liberation, a celebration that would honor her strength. But then, just as the clock struck midnight, the velvet curtains pulled back, and chaos erupted. A ragged woman still reeking of the city's grime and hardship barreled through the door. Her frazzled hair was evidence of a battle with the wind, her clothing a patchwork of desperation and what once might be indignity. The room froze. Eyes widened. Gasps filled the air like a cold snap. What was she doing here? Most of the guests, glittering with pearls and diamonds, lost their breath. "Who does she think she is?" murmured a guest, her voice laced with disdain. Others looked taken aback, skin clammy with disbelief. The woman locked eyes with Sophie, her gaze fierce yet imploring. And in that moment, the fragile barrier between wealth and poverty shattered like glass. As the woman approached Sophie, the tension crackled. What did she want? With each determined step, the atmosphere thickened. A lump formed in Sophia's throat, her heart raced faster than a commuter train. The guests tensed, some throwing confused glances at one another. What was the woman looking for? Sympathy, confrontation, or something even deeper that lay buried beneath the surface? Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. The silence hung like a thick fog, each heartbeat echoing with urgency. The woman knelt before Sophie, shaking hands ready to reveal secrets long hidden. You have to remember me, her words trembled, breaking through the stillness, and a creeping dread settled among the guests. What was her connection to Sophie? Gasps mixed with murmurs of shocked disbelief floated through the crowd. A room full of gold and glamour paralyzed by a single voice. As the chandelier flickered overhead, shadows twisted around the figures in the room. The tension felt palpable, like an unwelcome gust of wind, clawing its way into hearts tightly secured by pretension and pride. In that instant, nothing mattered but the weight of the moment. Sophie's eyes widened, and a flicker of recognition crossed her face. What could this mean? The thrill of curiosity pulsated as guests leaned in, hearts racing and breaths held. They felt trapped in the drama unfolding mystery, desperate to grasp what this unexpected visitor might reveal next. As they waited, one question echoed within each onlooker: who was this woman, and what shocking truth was she about to unveil? Sophie looked into the stranger's eyes and felt an electric jolt race through her. Memories flickered behind her mind like shadows, someone she once knew. But the ache of recognition only deepened her confusion. "I am sorry," she managed, her voice barely a whisper. "Don't be," the woman replied, her voice thick with emotion. "You were just a child. I never wanted it to come to this." Apprehension gripped the crowd. They furrowed their brows, whispering among themselves this was more than an awkward encounter, this was a scandal unfolding right before their eyes. The society elite with their tailored suits and sparkling jewels watched in shock, some even clutching their pearls, astonished, as if a tidal wave of truth was about to sweep them away. "Who on earth is she?" Someone finally blurted out, breaking the tension like a glass shattering. She's no one," Sophie stammered, a mix of disbelief and guilt swirling in her gut. "What do you want from me?" "Not from you, my dear," the woman said, her voice cracking. "From them. She gestured behind her to the lavish crowd, her arm trembling. There's no nobility in silence when the truth is so loud. A murmur of disdain erupted from the guests. This is a party, for God's sake. One man shouted, irritation spilling over. You've ruined everything. Sophie winced. Her heart raced both from fear for the woman, and confusion over what was being uncovered. But all eyes were now drawn to the stranger, this mysterious figure in tatters whose courage overshadowed their extravagant facade. With sudden boldness, the woman pulled something folded from her pocket. The room held its breath. As she opened the wrinkled paper, it fluttered like a wounded bird. She raised it high above her head, her voice steady. This is proof, she declared, proof that you all turned your backs, that you pushed us to the edges. Faces paled as she began to read. Sophie, you're not just the billionaire's daughter. You're the girl whose life changed once, a long time ago, when your father abandoned us. Sophie's face drained of color. Abandonment? Was this the truth she had been shielded from? The murmurs grew more frantic, creating a swell of chaos. What does she mean? Someone questioned, but their fear was drowned out by the woman's conviction. I've watched you grow, Sophie. I've seen how the world has turned a blind eye. But I can't be silent anymore, not when you're celebrated for things none of us have, she continued, her breathing quickening. Not when you're paralyzed by fear and pity instead of the truth. Heavy silence followed. Sophie felt her heart pound against her ribs, pumping hard enough to shatter the stillness. She wanted to hide, to disappear into the marble walls, but something deeper tugged her back. This was bigger than her, bigger than the truth she was yet to grasp. Who are you? Sophie's trembling voice finally broke through, a fragile thread in a sea of uncertainty. I'm your sister. Gasps erupted. The crowd surged forward, hungry for more, their expressions a mesh of disbelief and hunger for scandal. But the revelation hung in the air, thick as smoke. The room felt wobbly, as if the foundation of their world was shaking beneath their feet. As the chaotic storm swirled around them, Sophie was caught in the eye, grappling with this newfound identity. It wasn't just a sister she might have lost, it was a life wrapped in lies she hadn't even known existed. And then the door swung open again, a gust of wind chilling the room, and with it, a figure appeared, one Sophie recognized with dread. Step aside. It was her father, his eyes dark with an intensity she had never witnessed before. What would he reveal next? Did he hold answers or threats? The room spun with fresh tension, pulsing with unanswered questions. But Sophie was ready. Or was she? Step aside. Her father's voice cut through the chaos like a knife. The room fell silent, a heavy weight of tension collapsing on the guests as they moved to clear the way. Sophie felt the blood drain from her face. Let them hear, he said, his eyes narrowing at the woman. Let them see the truth of what you've done. Sophie's heart raced. She could feel the pulse thumping in her ears, drowning out all other sounds. What truth? Was this about her sister or about something far darker? Father, please, but he raised a hand, silencing her. You don't understand the full picture, Sophie. His gaze flicked to the crowd, who were watching breathlessly, drawn in like moths to a flame. This is not just family drama, this is a facade fragile and false that needs to be shattered. The stranger, her sister, stood tall, unyielding despite the fear flickering in her eyes. You know it's your fault, this all happened because of you. She shouted, anger igniting her voice. You made choices, decisions that changed lives. And now it's time for you to face them. Sophie could only watch, torn between fury and disbelief. The air crackled with emotion, and she felt the room bask in the intensity of the moment, as if they were caught in a storm where winds of revelation were about to sweep them all away. I brought you to this world, her father shot back, sweeping his arm as if trying to encompass the crowd. But I never forsook you for that creature. A murmur rippled through the guests. It was a subtle wave, but it felt like an avalanche was about to follow. Creature. Sophie gasped, the word bitter and jagged in her throat. Yes, my sister. It slipped out before she could stop it, but the truth of it hung there, an undeniable bridge, a connection she had yet to grasp. Yes, she is your sister, her father replied, venom coating his words. But she is not what you think. This is a plot to destabilize everything I have built. Sophie's head spun, her vision clouding in confusion. Was this just a tactic to control her? Or was there some shred of truth in his fury? The crowd's energy shifted, sensing the tension crackle in the air like static, waiting for the next strike. Do you really think I would lie, Sophie? The woman pressed, determination gleaming in her eyes. I am here because we are family, and you deserve to know the truth. More than anything else, you deserve to be free from the chains he has forged for you. Chains, a haunting image. Sophie felt them, an invisible weight wrapped tightly around her chest. The murmurings from the crowd ebbed, thoughts she had tucked away swirled back into focus. She was drowning, treading water in a sea of secrets. Freedom. Her father laughed, a cruel sound that echoed off the lavish walls. She'll lead you into ruin. You're better off not knowing. Better off? Sophie echoed, confusion morphing into clarity. Better off living a lie. The tension snapped. Decisions loomed in the shadow of long-held beliefs. Sophie could feel the persuasive pull of her father's authority and the raw, aching truth from the stranger. Choose, Sophie. You need to choose. Her sister implored, desperation lacing her voice. The ripple of power in the air thickened, all eyes fixed on her with unwavering fervor. Each heartbeat felt like a countdown, and the room was suspended in a moment, teetering on the edge of disaster. Sophie took a shaky breath, trying to silence her racing thoughts. I don't know what to, but before she could finish, the lights flickered ominously, followed by a crash that sent the guests scattering. The door slammed shut behind her father as the room plunged into darkness, and then came a single, eerie voice cutting through the chaos. You think this is the end? It's just the beginning. A chill ran down Sophie's spine. What other secrets lurked in the dark? What had she unleashed? As the panic surged, she gripped her sister's hand, feeling the reality of their bond, and swallowed hard. What was coming next? Would the truth shatter everything she believed in? The darkness swallowed them whole. Sophie's fingers clutched her sister's tightly, her heart racing as uncertainty dripped into her thoughts like a slow poison. She strained her eyes, hoping to catch a glimpse of the crowd, but all she could see was a swirl of shadows. The air felt charged, heavy with dread, alive with tension. Stay close, Sophie whispered, fear creeping into her voice. She could sense her sister's warmth beside her, a fragile comfort in the abyss. The crowd was an ocean, vast and tumultuous, and she felt utterly adrift. Suddenly, the lights flickered back on, revealing disarray. Guests huddled together in startled groups, faces pale and breath quickened, every eye darting nervously around. Her father stood alone, fury laced in his gaze, but for once, he seemed unnerved, like a cornered animal desperate for escape. That was just a malfunction, he barked, but uncertainty dripped from his words. Return to your seats. Sophie could see the fear in the eyes of the guests, pried open wide like they were seeing a specter in their midst. Whispers began to spiral, words like plot, betrayal, and truth floated through the room, piercing her heart. Is it true, Sophie? One of her father's associates, a slick-haired man, turned toward her, his tone a mix of skepticism and intrigue. Is she really your sister? In that moment, the spotlight turned on her. A prism of expectation hung in the air, filtering her reality through many sparked thoughts. How could she know? How could she trust? Father, she began, but he raised a finger, cutting her off. Enough. His voice boomed, shaking the chandeliers above. This is not a time for drama. Sophie felt the weight of his command press against her. But something within her churned like a storm, breaking free of chains long adhered. No, she said, firm with desperation. This is exactly the time for the truth. Across the room, her sister shook her head, panic flooding her features. You must choose, Sophie. Your father can't be trusted. Gasps rippled through the crowd, and the tension morphed into something sharper, more aggressive. Voices clashed and merged, and soon angry murmurs turned into outright accusations. Liar! Someone shouted, directing their ire at the sister. You're here to ruin us. Stop! Sophie shouted, her voice slicing above the cacophony. Just listen. But no one could hear her over the tide of panic that a rattle of glass echoed as one guest knocked over a drink, and in an instant, the room erupted into chaos. Screams mixed with cries of confusion, as people surged toward the exits like they were prey fleeing a predator. Sophie felt her heart slam in her chest. In that moment, she knew she had to dare something larger. Without thinking, she jumped up onto the nearest table, the polished wood slick against her feet. Everyone, please. I need you to hear me. The crowd hesitated, drawn by her urgency, and gradually the noise softened. Their eyes locked onto her, some curious, others wary. I don't know everything yet, she began, her voice trembling but strong. But I promise you I'm searching for the truth. I will not allow this family's lies to define us any longer. The words hung heavy in the air, igniting something. A pulse of rebellion, perhaps. But there was no time to savor it, as the lights flickered again, plunging them into darkness for a heartbeat, a strobe of uncertainty, and then, a voice broke through once more, low and sinister, its edges sharp. The truth comes with a price, my dear Miss Sophie. That harrowing tone ignited a primal fear, and Sophie felt raw panic clutching at her throat, gripping it tightly. Was it the same shadowy figure that had spoken before? Was it truly just the beginning? Her heart raced, the silence that followed deafening as she strained to listen, every heartbeat pulsing like a countdown to something terrible. What would be revealed in the harsh light of the truth? And what would it cost her? As the lights flickered back on, a new figure stepped into view, shadowed and menacing, eyes glinting with hidden agendas. What do you think you can handle, Sophie? The room held its breath, and she realized they stood on the edge of something vast and dangerous. What had she truly unleashed? The figure moved into the light, and Sophie's heart dropped. It was Victor, her father's business partner, a man known for his ruthless ambition and cunning ways. His presence felt like a dark cloud hovering over the room, suffocating and daunting. Guests shrank back, eyes darting to him with a blend of fear and uncertainty, his lips curled into a smirk, and he took a step forward, a predator reveling in chaos. You think you're ready to uncover secrets, Sophie? You're standing at the precipice of a chasm, and you have no idea how far it drops. Sophie swallowed hard, her instincts screaming at her to back down. She had always known him to be dangerous, but his descent into darkness now felt personal. What do you want? She managed, her voice shaking as she fought against the grip of fear. To expose the truth, he whispered, as if sharing a secret only meant for their ears. And to watch you squirm in the fallout. The murmurs began again, frantic notes of panic rising among the guests like waves crashing against the shore. Whispers spiraled into a cacophony. What truth? What secrets? Someone yelled out, desperate for clarity. Victor's gaze swept the crowd, a malevolent glint in his eyes. You think you know your family, Sophie? You're but a child in a world of puppets and strings. But let us see if you can dance to the music of truth. And just like that, he reached into the inside of his jacket and pulled out an ornate red envelope. More gasps erupted, and Sophie felt the electricity in the air shift. It was a gesture steeped in drama, the embodiment of intrigue. He flung the envelope toward her, and it landed with a soft thud on the table beside her. You want to know everything? Open it, he taunted. Sophie felt the weight of it, a storm brewing inside her. She hesitated, glancing at her sister, whose expression mirrored her own fear. What if it unravels everything? She whispered. Do it, Sophie. Her sister urged, urgency pouring from her words. We can't run anymore. With trembling hands, Sophie picked up the envelope, her pulse racing. She glanced around the room, faces twisted in anticipation, anxiety displayed in the way they fidgeted and flinched. The moment seemed eternal, but she couldn't wait. She tore it open, the sound echoing in the thick silence. Inside were photos, grains of memories that felt foreign yet unsettlingly real. They captured private moments, snapshots of her family intertwined with strangers, dark truths lurking behind each image. Her breath caught in her throat as she glanced at one image, stomach churning. It was her father, laughing with a woman Sophie didn't recognize, clutched in the arms of someone threateningly familiar. "No," Sophie whispered, dread flooding her veins. An icy realization dawned. The chaotic dance of her past was now a stage for a sinister performance, one she feared was only beginning. "What have you done?" one guest shouted, his voice a thunderclap that cut through the air. Victor leaned closer, breath hot with menace. "The truth shakes foundations, Sophie. Are you prepared for what's next? Because once you unveil this, there's no turning back." The room was suddenly charged with palpable energy, each guest gripped by a mixture of fascination and horror. Fear washed over her like a tidal wave, but beneath it all, an ember of defiance sparked. "I'm ready," Sophie said, meeting Victor's gaze. "Let us unveil the truth." As the guests held their breaths, the lights flickered again, the tension thick enough to slice. And in that moment of quiet madness, Sophie knew the descent into chaos had truly begun, and every secret uncovered carried with it a price. "What will you sacrifice for the truth, Sophie?" Victor sneered, the shadows dancing in his eyes. Her mind raced with possibilities, the cost only just beginning to settle in. But before she could respond, the ground beneath them began to tremble, the walls of their world shaking with the force of what's to come. A loud crash echoed through the hall. What had been unleashed? Was it simply the truth, or something far more sinister, with confusion swirling? In her mind, Sophie realized the game had just begun. What other truths lay hidden, waiting to explode? She steeled herself, determined to confront not only her family's history but the impending chaos looming just around the corner. The moment Sophie braced herself, the lights flickered violently, plunging the hall into momentary darkness. Gasps erupted in the crowd, shadows sprawling like monstrous fingers against the walls. Her heart raced, a drumbeat of dread. "Is this part of your show, Victor?" she shouted, trying to maintain the courage she had just found. Her voice echoed, but he remained unfazed, amusement dancing behind his eyes. Before he could respond, the room shuddered again. Heavy chandeliers rattled overhead, casting eerie reflections. A group of guests shrieked, some covering their mouths in disbelief. "What is happening?" someone cried, panic lacing their words. Victor laughed, cutting through the chaos. "The truth has a way of shaking things up. Isn't that right?" He gestured broadly, encompassing everyone. "Let us see who is brave enough to embrace it." The floor rattled beneath Sophie's feet. She locked eyes with her sister, Sarah, whose own expression mirrored her own horror. "We need to get out of here," Sarah yelled, but Sophie could barely hear her over the tumult. The envelope slipped from her fingers as she steadied herself against a nearby table, her eyes scanning for an exit. The photographs slipped from their resting place, spilling across the floor a scatter of shattered memories that felt like a haunting confirmation of everything dark about her family. Then she saw it, a flicker of red amidst the chaos. One of the photographs had landed face up. As she squinted through the shadows, recognition slammed into her like a brick wall. It was her mother, standing in a sunlit garden, embracing a stranger. Their faces radiated joy, but the stranger's smile was twisted, dark, familiar enough to twist the knife deeper. The ground jolted again, and screams pierced through the air. "It's an earthquake!" someone shouted, but Sophie knew wildly that it was more than that. This wasn't just tremors. The pent-up energy of the hidden truths was reaching its breaking point. Victor folded his arms, a sinister grin playing on his lips as he watched the turmoil unfold. "Do you feel it, Sophie? The walls closing in. You can thank your family's secrets for this little shake-up." "Enough. Sophie screamed, limitations of fear sparking a flame of determination in her heart. She took a step forward, challenging Victor. You want the truth? Fine. But I'm not your pawn. With that, she crouched down and snatched up the fallen photographs one by one, adrenaline propelling her forward. Her sister joined her, their fingers brushing as they connected over the shared understanding. We need to expose this, Sarah said, breathless, clutching one of the pictures. This can't go on. A thunderous crash sounded from the doors, splintering wood as they burst open. The crowd jerked towards it, and there, silhouetted against the light, stood a figure. Sophie felt her breath hitch. It was a woman, her face obscured by shadow but with a familiar glint in her eye. The atmosphere shifted, drawing the focus away from Victor and towards the new arrival. Who are you? Victor sneered, losing his composure for the first time, but the woman stepped forward, battling against the chaos that threatened to engulf them. I'm the one you've been hiding, Victor. And I'm here to reclaim my story. The crowd shifted restlessly, a mixture of dread and curiosity. As the unknown woman's voice echoed, Sophie realized this was no ordinary revelation. The tangled web of secrets was about to grow even larger, and she had the sinking feeling there was little time left before everything spiraled out of control. Victor's smile vanished, replaced with the stark color of fear. You don't belong here, he spat, but the confidence in her steadings challenged every syllable he uttered. Sophie stood frozen, multiple truths converging into chaos. The ground shook once more, and every shadow now felt like a threat. Who was this woman, and how was she connected to the whirlwind of secrets that surrounded them? A new reality gripped Sophie, a churning tide of uncertain revelations swirling around her. What is going to happen now? She whispered, a sense of foreboding tightening its grasp around her. The moment hung heavy in the air. The dance of hidden truths awaited her next move, and Sophie knew one thing for certain: the truth would not come without consequences. The silence that followed the woman's bold declaration thickened, pressing in on Sophie like the weight of 1,000 secrets. The guests stopped screaming, their murmurs now a low hum of disbelief. In that suspended moment, every eye locked onto the woman, the figure who had just pierced Victor's iron facade. You think you know the truth? Victor's voice shook beneath a veneer of arrogance, the defiance in his posture wavering. You're just a ghost from my past. Go back to where you belong. Where I belong. The woman stepped into the light, revealing a face etched with determination and pain. You think you can bury me forever? I'm more than the shadow you pretend doesn't exist. A chill swept across the hall, and Sophie's heart pounded louder. Every word dripped with history, resentment, and perhaps a sliver of hope. Who was she? Answers loomed just outside reach, teasing at the edges of Sophie's mind. Stop. You're ruining everything. Victor bellowed, his composure collapsing. He looked around, seeking allies among the guests, but all he met were wide-eyed stares and whispers, people questioning the man they thought they knew. Victor, you've spun a web of lies and deceit. The woman continued, a fire igniting behind her eyes. And I'm bringing down the house of cards. Sophie felt her stomach twist. This wasn't just a revelation about Victor, this was deeply personal. It was as if the universe was exposing an inseverable link between all of them. And Sarah, standing beside Sophie, whispered, what if she is telling the truth? The room shook once more violently this time. Guests stumbled back, shock plastered across their faces. Sophie's grip tightened around the photographs in her hands. What does she mean, Victor? She demanded. What lies have you been telling? Victor's bravado flickered, and panic clouded his expression. This is none of your business, Sophie. All of you, he waved his arm dismissively, but nobody flinched. My affairs are very much your business, the woman countered, stepping dangerously close to him. You've built this empire on stolen secrets. And tonight, it falls apart. Sophie's breath quickened as she exchanged glances with Sarah. What if she is connected to the photos? Memories swam in Sophie's mind, things she'd only begun to glimpse in the darkest corners of her family history. There. Look. Sarah pointed to a photograph that had fluttered further away, revealing another image. A similar-faced child, playing on a swing, oblivious to the storm creeping just beyond the safety of the frame. Is that? Yes. I think it is. Sophie's voice came out in a rush, excitement mingling with dread. Victor's face contorted, his eyes wild. Stop this madness. But the other patrons were shifting uneasily, and one brave soul spoke up, what do you mean by stolen secrets? With every breath, more eyes pinned in on Victor, dissecting his unraveling facade. The energy in the room was electric. Dare they confront the truth? The earthquake-like tremors continued, a physical manifestation of the emotional turmoil. As Sophie locked eyes with the woman, a wave of empathy washed over her. You're not a ghost, you're real. We need to know what happened. With the crowd's attention now intensely focused, the atmosphere crackled. Someone was ready to break the silence, and Sophie could feel the air pause, pregnant with anticipation. Victor's glare burned through the chaos. You will regret this. He warned, but his threats carried less weight now, and then, just when it seemed the truth was ready to unfurl, the woman stepped closer to Sophie. Her voice dropped to a low whisper, you deserve to know everything, but are you ready for what comes next? Sophie's heart pounded in her ears. This was no longer just about her family's history, it was about her identity, her reality. The boundary between courage and fear crumbled. Tell me, Sophie breathed, determination flooding her veins, but before the woman could respond, another thunderous crash echoed from behind, causing the foundation of the hall to tremble. Everyone gasped, a solid wall of dread. Tightening around them, through the chaos, the whisper of destiny lingered, lingering just out of reach. What had Victor truly hidden? As the ground shuddered again, ready to shake loose the deepest secrets, Sophie realized that the time for half-truths was over. And in that moment, she understood, the truth had its own price. Would she pay it? As the wall shuddered violently, the chandelier above swayed perilously, showering smaller fragments of crystal like shooting stars, each one a reminder of the looming disaster. Onlookers huddled together, sharing glances of fear and confusion, while some scrambled for the exits. But Sophie stood frozen, her gaze caught in the storm of uncertainty. Stay calm. Victor barked, trying to regain control, but the fear in his voice made it clear he was losing his grip. We will take care of this. The woman by his side brushed off his command with a dismissive wave. What you're trying to hide is far more dangerous than any quake. She turned her attention back to Sophie, her eyes seizing the moment unyieldingly. You need to understand, Sophie. The pictures you hold, they show a life that was stolen. A life that connects us all. Sophie's breath hitched as questions churned inside her. The room felt alive, thrumming with secrets that begged to be unveiled. What do you mean? What was stolen? Her voice barely raised above the rumbling chaos. The woman's expression softened, drawing in the crowd with her palpable vulnerability. I was a part of your story long before you were born. I witnessed things that could shatter your world, things involving your family. Gasps rippled through the crowd, and Sarah stepped closer to Sophie. What if she is telling the truth about our family? You have to listen. Victor's face twisted into a mask of fury and desperation. Silence her. He roared, as his eyes darted around for potential allies. But everyone stood motionless, captivated by the unfolding drama. Why should we keep secrets for you? A man shouted from the back, his voice steady and purposeful. If we're going to get through this, we need the truth, Victor. Sophie stared at Victor. His crafted world of power began to crumble around him, bit by bit. She could see the panic behind his bravado now, a fear that rippled through the crowd. Tell us what she knows. The words burst forth from her, fueled by an urgency she never realized she possessed. Just then, another crash echoed from the far side of the hall, louder this time. A portion of the wall buckled, sending debris falling to the ground. The energy shifted drastically, morphing from adrenaline-fueled confrontation to sheer survival instinct. People screamed, and chaos erupted as they fought to escape. Victor surged forward, desperately trying to restore order, but the room's energy morphed into a wild cyclone of fear and urgency. As the guests moved to flee, the woman grabbed Sophie's wrist, drawing her aside. "You have to choose now. Do you want the truth, or will you let him swallow you into the shadows?" The weight of her words struck a chord deep within Sophie. Outside the chaos, darkness awaited her, but so did the light of revelation. "I want the truth," she gasped, firm in her resolve. "Then brace yourself." The woman's voice trembled with intensity. "The ground beneath us is just the beginning. What's buried runs deeper, a family secret that could change everything." Just then, the lights flickered, plunging them into darkness for a heart-stopping moment before a backup generator buzzed to life, casting eerie shadows that danced across the walls. The tension thickened, pressing on Sophie's chest. She turned to meet the woman's gaze again, the churn of rumors swirling, demanding to be untangled. In the confusion, a sudden shout broke through the cacophony. "Look out!" A beam fell from overhead, and with it, the stakes became even higher. Would they be trapped in this web of lies, or would they emerge with the truth? Sophie's pulse raced as chaos unfurled around them. What truth lay hidden just out of reach, and what dangers accompanied its revelation? One thing became clear: this night was rewriting her destiny. She had to know, but were they running out of time? Sophie's heart pounded like a drum in her ears, drowning out the frantic shouts and screams around her. The light flickered again, casting an otherworldly hue over the gathered crowd. People stumbled over one another, eyes wide with panic. She felt the woman's grip tighten around her wrist, her eyes burning with urgency. "We don't have much time," the woman urged, her voice barely a whisper beneath the chaos. Sophie could see Victor trying to regain control, but with each passing moment, his fortress of confidence was crumbling. "Everyone, follow me," he shouted, waving his arms as if that could somehow make them feel secure. The truth was, they were all just like marionettes, strings cut, dancing on the edge of chaos. "Stop!" Sophie called out, her voice cutting through the murmur of fear like a knife. "What do you know about my family?" The woman turned back to Sophie, her expression resolute. "Your father buried secrets to protect you, but in doing so, he damned you. The truth, it's hidden where you least expect it." Outside, thunder rumbled ominously, echoing the turmoil within the hall. The chandelier began to sway more violently, and a deafening crack reverberated through the air as another chunk of plaster broke from the ceiling above and plummeted down, landing dangerously close to a young couple who rushed to escape. Gasps filled the room, amplifying the panic. "People are getting hurt," Sarah shouted, her hands clasped together, worry etched across her face. Sophie's fear for her loved ones sparked within her, fueling her determination. Victor's voice rang out again, straining against the tide of chaos. "Stay focused. We need to get everyone out." His bravado cracked for just a second, revealing a hint of his own dread. That moment of vulnerability hit Sophie hard. "Are you going to let him lead you into darkness?" The woman pressed, her grip steady. "Or will you refuse to be kept in the shadows any longer?" Just then, an unexpected roar sounded from the far side of the hall. A wall seemed to buckle under the strain, and a torrent of dust cascaded through the air, blotting out light and vision. Sophie coughed, the air suddenly thick and suffocating. "Over here," Victor directed, trying to corral the crowd toward one of the emergency exits, but the floor trembled beneath them like a living entity. "I believe in you, Sophie," the woman said, eyes fierce with conviction. "You must uncover the truth before it's too late." Sophie hesitated, the swirling chaos around her clamoring for her attention. The stakes were higher than she had initially realized. She wanted answers, and she wanted to save her family from the shadows calling to them. Taking a deep breath, she pulled away from the woman and dashed toward the noise, dodging debris as the hall continued to shake, her heart racing as she felt the pulse of power weaving into her bones. She had to dig deeper. Then she saw it, a flash of something familiar, half buried under the fallen rubble. The remnants of a picture frame, its shattered glass glimmering like shards of truth. "Wait! Don't go alone!" Sarah yelled, panic heeding her words. But Sophie plunged forward, driven by an insatiable hunger for answers. Just as she reached for the frame, a powerful tremor surged through the building, sending her sprawling to the floor. Everything seemed to slow as she braced for impact, her hand gripping onto the remnants of her past. "Get out now!" Victor's frantic calls echoed in the air just as a crash shook the ground beneath her. What lay beneath the rubble? What truth was waiting to be revealed? Panic layered Sophie's resolve. As the debris shifted around her, a question loomed larger than life. Was she bold enough to uncover the shadows of her family's past, or would she become another victim of their secrets? With the hall collapsing around her, Sophie realized one thing: her decision was going to change everything. And she wasn't sure if she was ready for that. The chaos continued to spiral as Sophie clutched the remnants of the shattered frame, the tangible piece of her family history sparking something deep within her. With adrenaline pumping, she pushed herself up from the ground, scanning the tumult around her. The air felt thick and heavy, filled with dust and the echoes of fear. But within her, a fire ignited, a fierce determination to understand, to uncover the truth hidden beneath lies. "Get out!" Victor shouted once more, his voice frantic against the backdrop of chaos. But the crowd seemed too caught up, too ensnared in the web of their own panic, unable to process that they were all standing on unstable ground, not just physically, but morally. The truth wasn't just a whisper in the shadows, it was a force yearning to be unleashed, raw and real. Sophie turned the frame piece over in her hands, the edges rough against her skin, and as she did, a flurry of memories flooded back. The tiny glimmer of hope and despair defined by her mother's face in the picture. She remembered the warmth of laughter and love. The woman's spirit, the one standing alongside her now, felt familiar. This was the moment. The moment everything hung in balance. "Help me!" she shouted to Sarah, who was trying to navigate the throngs of terrified guests. "We have to find the basement." "The basement?" Sarah blinked, bewildered. "Why?" "It's where I always found my mother's secret things, the stories buried deeper than our blood." Sophie's heart pounded, every heartbeat calling her toward the truth. She pushed forward through the splintering wood, nearly colliding into the nearest wall, but Sarah was right behind her, determination drawing them as tightly bonded as sisterhood could weave. As they descended into the chaotic underbelly of the building, Sophie worked frantically to steady her breathing. The shadows loomed larger, and with it, an electrifying sense of purpose tinged the air. The whispers of the past beckoned her, but would it be worth it? Would the truth free them, or would it shatter their very existence? "Take this," Sarah called, tossing Sophie a flashlight as they reached the base of the stairs. It flickered to life, illuminating the dim corridor ahead. The walls crumbled, rich with stories long veiled in darkness. Each step felt like a heartbeat leading them deeper into their family history. As they moved further in, the flashlight caught sight of something, a sizey trunk in the corner of the basement. It shouted for attention, draped in shadows but exuding a magnetic pull. Buried inside, perhaps a lifetime of family secrets waiting to be unearthed. Diving to the floor, they hoisted the trunk open to reveal a collection of letters, photographs, and mementos wrapped in a chain of memories. Moments flickered past them: her father, her mother, the woman she had barely known. Each item heaped with emotions, scattering doubt across the foundation of lies they had built. They were endless stories manifested in pieces of paper. "My God," Sarah whispered as she pulled out an envelope and opened it. The words swirled around them, weaving a tapestry of love and loss. "This is from Mom. She must have kept these hidden all this time." The letters caught Sophie's breath, mapping a journey through moments untouched by time. It didn't take long for the truth to settle in: her family wasn't built solely on shadows. Love had crafted it as much as disdain had crumbled it away. "We have to show everyone," Sophie said, adrenaline coursing through her like wildfire. "They need to see who we really are." This isn't just our family anymore, this is history, intertwined with so many lives. But before they could gather their bearings, the trembling in the walls grew more violent, the truth echoing in rhythm with the chaos enveloping them. "Let us go," Sophie urged, leading the charge back up into the fray, heart racing in furious unison with the shakes coming through the floorboards. They emerged from the shadows into the hall of stone and drama, where it felt like the world teetered on the brink. Victor was still there, his face twisted with malice and fear as he struggled against the tide of people. "Sophie! No!" he roared, fury igniting in his veins as she stepped into the light with determination painted on her face and truth glimmering in her hands. "Don't ruin your life for this." "Ruin?" she shot back, the power of conviction lifting her defiance. "You've been ruining lives by hiding it." And with that, she began sharing the letters, dashing from one stunned guest to another, holding the pieces of her mother's devotions, the stories they had lived in silence. The guests began to murmur, voices rising as understanding crept into the room, chilling Victor's grip on the crowd and threatening to fracture his facade. "This isn't a charade anymore." Sophie's voice rang out, resilient and bright. "These are not just pieces of paper, there are connections. This is family, our family." She watched as confused faces flickered, hope sparking in the eyes of those who had been mired by confusion before. The shadows retreated as the truth rushed back like a second wind, dark secrets unearthing light and drowning Victor's choking lies. The chandelier swayed again, this time steadying as the fear and tension dissolved from the room. Victor's mask cracked completely, and a tremor of terror coursed through him. "You've made a mistake, Sophie. You think this will help you? You have no idea," she replied, stepping closer to face him, emboldened by the bond her mother had knitted, one she could no longer deny. And as the walls echoed their story, Sophie felt the burdens within her lighten, for by speaking, she wasn't just salvaging her identity but laying bare the lives intertwined with hers. "Whatever comes next," Sophie's voice rang with clarity, "I'm ready." Because in that moment, she wasn't just revealing secrets, she was embracing a legacy worth fighting for. The foundation of fear shattered beneath a canopy of honesty, and in that storm of brokenness, Sophie found herself woven into the lineage of truth. As the hall settled into desperate stillness, Sophie looked around, her heart soaring. The real story was within reach, and she'd be damned if she didn't own every moment of it. Together with Sarah, they had summoned a force stronger than the fear that had loomed. But just as calm began to descend, a low rumble echoed once more, an aftershock of truth as Victor took a staggering step back, his facade stripped away. "You think this is done? There are worse truths concealed," but Sophie, brimming with strength, raised a hand to silence him. "You've played your last card, Victor." The weight of her words pressed like a seal upon the air. "You can't hide anymore." The noise subsided, like the silence after a fierce storm, a moment pregnant with potential. Because tonight, they would unravel this tale of tangled fates. "Time for a reckoning," she stated with fierce finality. She was ready to confront the tempest and all the secrets it carried, unrepentant and alive with purpose. And as she stepped boldly forward into the aftermath of chaos, one truth reigned supreme: this was just the beginning of her story. So, what will you do? You need to subscribe now, right this moment, so you aren't left out of the exciting new stories coming your way. This is the moment to show your support. Smash that like button now to feed the algorithm. And don't forget to flood the comments section with your reactions and theories about Sophie's next move. Share this video, don't wait even one more second, with 5 friends who need a dose of truth and inspiration. Let us make sure everyone knows the power of the story unfolding.